Thank you all. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching. So basically, today we are under constitutional law, and the topic that we are going to look at is the rule of law, the principle of rule of law. We have seen in many ways in the country, that's Uganda, whereby people are saying that we must be under the rule of law. The rule of law must be respected by everyone. We have seen the presidents of various laws that have been coming up. They are saying rule of law, rule of law. And we also have various rule of law clubs for over the country and age. So basically here we're going to look at what does rule of law mean? Where does the genesis come from? Coming to remember, actually we are those that are good at the constitutional history. Most of the English laws were received under the reception clause that was in 1902 order in council. That's how we adopted the Englishman ways. So basically, when you look at the principle of rule of law, it was brought up by Professor Dicey. You get, but before, however much actually I'll give the history part, but I'll be relating it how it's being applicable in Uganda currently. Realize that if a question comes to you, they'll never ask you that discuss what if even if it comes that discuss the principle of rule of law, it will be that discuss the principle of rule of law in Uganda, basically, which means you have to correlate it to what is happening what in Uganda. Basically, don't based on what Dicey said, but you have to relate that if Dicey said here, how is it relevant in the contemporary Uganda? So basically, Professor Dicey is the father or is the oracle of rule of law or the principle of rule of law, basically. And this Professor Dicey, the principle was identified in a book he wrote of the law of constitution, the law of constitution in 1885. That's the book that he wrote. He was advocating that rule of law is composed, actually for him he highlighted three principles that are composed in the rule of law. Basically, he said that the rule of law, actually, there must be an absolute supremacy of the law. That was the first principle that he brought up. There must be an absolute supremacy of the law. Basically, in this essence, what you have to correlate here, we are looking at Article 2. Who doesn't know Article 2 that talks about the supremacy of the Constitution being the grand norm and the supreme law? You get. So in this essence, he also advocated for equality. Basically, he said that all people must be equal. There's no nation that disrespects equality, and you expect rule of law to prevail. Equality. In our constitution, that is Article 21. We have seen it already. We have seen the Uganda Women's Lawyers Association versus Anthony General, where the women were saying that the sections, the Divorce Act, we are disrespecting their equality with the other gender, which were the men. So basically, that's the second principle that Dicey brought up. And also, the third one, is said that there should be a good government, a good or strong government. What do they mean by a good or strong government? A government has three organs. That is the legislature, executive, and the judiciary. So those three organs must be strong for there to be the principle of rule of law. Being strong there, basically, was advocating they must be independent, and they must be able to check each other. The way of appointment must be vivid, and it must be clear for there to be a strong what? Government. Those are the three principles that Dicey brought up, but nevertheless, in the due process, basically in the year of 1959, the year of 1959, there came the International Coalition of Jurists, who brought some revisions. They didn't abolish about Dicey's principles, but they added in some so that people can understand more what rule of law is composed. They added in some salt. You get, in this essence, adding in some salt is that they brought new ideas what rule of law is composed, basically. And this the International Coalition of Jurists, that is the ICJ, it was based in Geneva. You get, basically it brought in some derivatives, whereby they were to talk the principle of rule of law. First of all, they highlighted various, they are like around 10. But first of all, they highlight that there must be an existence of a strong government. However much even Dicey had highlighted it, that there must be a strong government whereby it must have three organs, Each organ must be independent. The people appointed must be worth. You get. There's no way that you can convince that Uganda is having a strong government, whereby the government, the people, the heads of those organs are weak or they are not independent. Basically, that's not a strong government. So basically, they also say that all government action must be must be backed up and conditioned by the law. What do they mean? That each action each action taken up by the government or any government entity or agency, it must be backed or conditioned by the law. What do they mean? That they mean that nobody is above the law. That's the point they're trying to emphasize, that nobody is above the law. We are all behind the law, and the law is the priority, is the one that moves to the forefront, which means if the president, let me give an example, that's where we see that the president's orders can be overturned by either the judiciary or the parliament itself. You get. So basically, even the parliament's decision can be overturned by, it may be the president himself. While assenting the bill, he can refuse. That is Article 91 of the Constitution. So basically, they must be backed or sanctioned by the law. Another thing, what we are looking at equality of the law. Equality of the law is saying that when you read Article 21 of our Constitution, Uganda, it portrays that everybody must be equal, must respect, any agency, whether you are the president or you are executive minister or a body or an, you must respect all the principles and protect the law. Basically, that is what they are trying to bring about equality of the law. Basically, they also bring a concept that the judiciary must be independent. You get the independence of the judiciary. I'll not go more so in the independence of judiciary, reason being that I'm talking about the principle of rule of law. But however, the independence of the judiciary is also a topic that we shall look at in our next video. That is Article 128 of the Constitution that talks about the independence. The judiciary will not subjected to any control by any authority. You get. Basically, that gives us that the ICJ brought up that idea as a principle of rule of law. They also brought in respect of human rights. The rights of people must be respected. What do they mean that rights of people must be what? Protected and respected. When actually rights of people, they are all in chapter 4 of the 1995 Constitution of Uganda. All those rights that are invested in chapter 4 must be respected. You get, and must be recognized. Every person has a right, and what you have to know that rights are not given by the state. You get your rights immediately you are born in that particular country. It is not the state that gives you your right. You have your right already. You get. Once they violate it, you can go to court and sue that particular body that has violated your rights. Let it be the police, let it be anybody. You can ask for your right. That's why even the judiciary will appeal, because you are not satisfied what the judge has said. Then we must have a representative government. What do we mean by a government to be a representative government? Here we are trying to mean that the government is for the people, by the people. It is elected by the people. When you read Article 59, provides that a person has the right to vote. What does it imply? That he has the right to vote any particular leader in that particular government. That's why from the president to the members of parliament, LOCs, they elected. That's what we call a representative government. That's why we see under Article 60 of the 1995 Constitution formulates the Electoral Commission. You get the Electoral Commission. And when you read Article 61, we will provide for the functions, of which the function is that to organize elections, both national. You get. That's how we get the representative government. Then we have natural justice as also an idea in the rule of law by the ICJ. Natural justice, basically those that have tried to go deep in what natural justice means. Natural justice has two elements. That is the right to fair hearing and the right against bias. That you cannot be a judge in your own case. That is the rule, that under bias, you cannot be a judge in your own case. When you have an interest in a case, you cannot be a judge in it. obviously the interest has influenced your would-be decision. So basically here, natural justice must be adhered to. Article 28 that talks about fair hearing, the rule against bias, whereby they say that you cannot be a judge in your own case. So if the principle of natural justice is respected and adhered to, there we shall witness the principle of rule of law in a country. Then we have a fair and effective system of administrative law. What do I mean by a fair and administrative system of administrative law? Basically, here what we are trying to mean is that the system is free and fair. Administrative officers have security of tenure. Administrative officers have a fair hearing. The appointment is fair and vivid through appoint. That's why you say that appointment must be in writing. You get to bring that element of transparency. When you read Article 42 of the 1995 Constitution provides for that in administrative decision there must be a fair hearing and a just system in case of anything. That is Article 42 of the 1995 Constitution. Then we also have there must be respect of international law. What do I mean by international law? Realize that there are certain laws that are binding. They are international, you get, but they are binding in our country locally, you get. So basically, once we are making laws in parliament, or once we are trying to bring up something, we must bear in mind both agencies, that is the parliament, the judiciary, and the executive, must respect international law. What do I mean? Basically, when you, for example, Article 122, the president appoints ambassadors. You mean what is the emphasis of appointing ambassadors? Basically, they are trying to create that reality that we are respecting the international law. An ambassador going into a foreign country, it means that there is the mutual bond that we are trying to correlate. Okay, that is Article 120, where the president appoints ambassadors. Then we have also seen whereby Article 123, where the president has mandate to sign treaties, conventions, and agreements with foreign countries. What do I mean that? When you read even under sources of law, treaties, conventions, they are sources of law. So in this essence, Article 123 is giving the mandate to put us in mind that there is a clear respect of international law through the signing of treaties, conventions, and agreement by the president. And also, the final one that I can give under the international, actually under the ICJ is that there must also be a respect and protection of the affairs of the citizens or the people in the state. Their affairs must be respected, whereby they must be given a freedom of expression, whereby they must be heard, they must be given a clear room whereby they can protect their rights, both economically, politically, and socially. Economically, we have seen that the government is trying to create circles. So on the society, we have seen a lot of things that are being correlated by the government for the people. Politically, we have seen that people are getting involved through electing the people they would like, among others. So basically, this is basically that is to wrap it up. That is the principle of rule of law, and a person out there basically not just end just understanding to pass, but become an agent of rule of law in your particular area or village. You get, I know you're a student, but become the oracle, become the descendant, become the delegate of rule of law. Thank you for listening and stay blessed.